Welcome in to the newest episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real_G Warner. This is the soccer podcast. We're going to cover the Carabao Cup in England and the Coppa Italia today, which I think are our only midweek matches. Please, if you see something happening in France, in Spain, or in Germany, please let me know. I feel like it's exhibition time in Germany, and who knows what's going on in those other countries. But just try not to miss an entire slate like I did that last French league before Christmas, whatever that was, a long time ago. Thank you for tuning in. If you're not following me yet on Twitter, do it, the real_G Warner. If you're not on Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/the real_G Warner. The best place to get all my picks in one place across all sports, including a really good start to the college basketball season. But let's get into it. We'll start in England in the Coppa Italia. It's early. We'll start in the Carabao Cup, and we're semifinals here. Two legs, and we're starting with the first legs, and we'll start with actually a non-Premier League side that somehow has made the semifinals. We got Middlesbrough hosting Chelsea. Currently, Middlesbrough a 1-goal underdog with almost all the juice on Chelsea on the road. All lines quoted courtesy of BetOnline.ag. If you're not a member there yet, check out the podcast description if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or on YouTube. And there's a 50% sign up bonus for first time depositors. So go check that out. Take some free money from the casino. The total here is 3, juiced very heavily to under total, which we would imagine in a cup match would probably be pretty low, or at least I thought so. So seeing 3 is pretty nice. Middlesbrough, they're in the championship right now. I don't have a huge, I guess, background on them at this point, but sitting 12th in the championship, which is probably fairly far outside those top 6 places that we saw Nottingham Forest a couple seasons ago, come from like the bottom all the way to the playoff, and then eventually make their way to the Premier League, winning that playoff. So Middlesbrough on 36 points. They're only, I guess, 4 back of Sunderland, currently sitting 11-3-12 this season. So 11 wins, 3 draws, 12 losses. In 26 matches, they've scored 38. So it's less than a goal and a half per match. And they've conceded about a goal and a half per match with 39 conceded. So -1 goal differential. Not looking great, but they've made it here, and I would imagine that everyone in these semifinals will be taking this very seriously. So, from a Chelsea perspective, my opinion and feeling on them is they've been an offense I've wanted to fade for a very long time. Yes, getting back Christopher Nkunku, or getting him really for his first time as a Chelsea Blue, has really helped their offense because he's a great goal scorer, but to me, he's not the number 9 that they need. He's really played left wing, scored a ton of goals for Red Bull Leipzig in the Bundesliga, but was not really the striker that they, like I said, just need. I'm not really sure how that worked because they have so many young players that all kind of play similar positions, but they don't really have that number 9 that they really need. Nicholas Jackson, just to me, is not that type of player. I mean, he scores a ton of goals because he gets a ton of chances, but I don't like the idea that you need to have a lot of chances to score. Efficiency is the name of the game, and across all sports, especially in soccer. So I think from, I guess, a gambling perspective, since that's what we're doing here on this podcast, I'm most interested in the home underdog Middlesbrough +1 right now, potentially climbing to 1.25, though it's very juiced at BetOnline. The total is 3, and it's very heavily juiced to under. That's not a number that I necessarily want to lose. I think that might make it a little bit easier for me to kind of put that out there. We'll do an ultimate best bet end of show across the multiple competitions we're covering today. But I'm pretty interested, and I think my biggest interest is in that under 3, just because I just have not really believed in Chelsea's offense, and still haven't found a reason to believe in it. And I think at this point, it's like until something drastically changes where they all of a sudden look like an efficient offense, I don't think I could ever really believe in it until they really start to prove something, and they haven't done that in a while. And I think really where I sit now is I'm looking to be against Chelsea as much as possible. In terms of strategy for this matchup, I'm sure Chelsea want to take a big lead in the first leg, and then they can be a lot more comfortable at home. But I don't necessarily think that Pochettino, their manager, is going to do anything to risk their defense, though. And Chelsea, I mean, they've had some defensive problems this season, but I think ultimately that's not really their problem area. It's still the offensive side, and it's still scoring. I think Middlesbrough, as a mid-table championship division, so second tier in England side, they're going to do their best to try to keep Chelsea out. I think that's their strategy. Try to nick a 1-0 victory, maybe even go goalless. I think a draw would be acceptable to the home team, so I don't see them throwing and I don't see them throwing caution to the wind. And I also think even in a match where they're trailing, they're not likely to go crazy because there is that second leg behind them. So I think this is going to be a tight match. I think the home team's going to do their best to keep Chelsea out. And I think we've seen enough from Chelsea over the years, the last few seasons, to really believe that they're not going to do much to try to change that kind of expectation that they're going to score a ton of goals. So I'll take under 3 as my best bet on that Tuesday matchup. And we'll move to Wednesday in the Carabao Cup, which we have Liverpool hosting Fulham. Liverpool coming off a big match in the FA Cup early stages when they went on the road to Arsenal this week. And Liverpool are going to be missing Mohamed Salah, which is a big deal for their offense and their penalty taker and things of that nature. But the nice part about Liverpool is I feel like they've been preparing for his exit for a long time now. I mean, there was big rumors that Salah was moving to Saudi Arabia and taking a big cash paycheck. Probably more so than the Premier League. Surprising to hear that, but I guess that's what happens with the black gold or the oil money. But we then saw a pretty big upset from Fulham also in their last Premier League match, knocking off Arsenal after falling behind very early. So Fulham have been an interesting team lately. I think Liverpool will clearly towards the top of the table have a lot more respect from market makers and things of that nature. Liverpool currently a 1.25 goal favorite at home with almost all the juice. Over is 3, juice very heavily to over here this time. Fulham to me are not an offensive side, but they have somehow scored a bunch of goals, which I really wasn't expecting, but it's happened. And I guess we should believe in that a little bit. Raul Jimenez is finally delivering, I guess, on expectations that he's not been able to do for years and years and years. And I feel like Liverpool is a really a strong offense and not really the strongest defense. So there maybe is some ability here for Fulham, though I expect them on the road going into Anfield to be as conservative as they can be. And that makes me think this first leg also it makes me want to look towards under as well. I love getting the push on 3. I think that's really important and valuable. I don't necessarily think, kind of similar to the Middlesbrough style or strategy here, is that Fulham are very big underdog. It starts a little bit differently because they're on the road here, but I expect them to be way more conservative than Middlesbrough because they do have that home leg coming back around. Liverpool, I'm not sure exactly what a lineup will look like, considering they played about the best they had besides the Virgil van Dijk, I think, illness this weekend at Arsenal. So we'll see if there's potentially some rotation. As I mentioned, Salah is already off to the AFCON to play for Egypt. So that does potentially, I guess, limit their forward rotation, though that seems to be the deepest part of the squad. And ultimately, I think is the best part of their team is Liverpool going forward. But I think there's a pretty good chance that Fulham here will be competitive. And what that essentially means to me is that they're going to try to play. I mean, they stayed in the league last season, which was not guaranteed and maybe was a little bit unexpected, but they did that behind their defense. It's been a little bit more of peaks and valleys offensively this year, and they've had some really good scoring matches, but I feel like seeing them contribute here to the scoreboard, I think a maximum here expected is probably 1. And I think it would probably be a lower XG than that. I think Liverpool will dominate this game, and Fulham will do their best to try to keep themselves alive as much as possible for the second leg. So I'll go Fulham under 3 as my best bet there. And I do like the side a little bit, getting more than a goal, 1.25, but I think the under is probably more interesting to me at this point. So for my best bet, which will I guess compare to the Coppa Italia interests in the second part of the show, I'll go with Fulham under 3 in that one. And I think my best bet just overall is Middlesbrough at home getting a draw, or excuse me, getting a low scoring result, whether that is a draw, whether it is a win, maybe it's a single or I guess low scoring loss to Chelsea at home. I think Middlesbrough under 3 is my best bet for the Carabao English Football League Cup. So now we'll move to Coppa Italia. We got 4 matches over 3 days. And so we'll get to that right now. It looks like BetOnline is actually throwing out some extra money, or excuse me, some extra lines, which is really nice because they haven't really been doing that besides the Premier League so far. So good on you, Dave Mason and team. And I appreciate your support for the length of this podcast. Really has been going on. So we'll start with Fiorentina hosting Bologna. That's today on Tuesday, the 9th of January. Fiorentina currently a quarter goal favorite with almost all the juice. Over under is 2, juice to over pretty heavily. Fiorentina with a pretty disappointing loss this weekend on the road at Sassuolo. Crazy match with a bunch of goals ruled out both directions. They're going to want to possess the ball as much as possible, and we'll see what happens with that and how likely that will be. Bologna with an awesome, really, I guess, shutout streak, clean sheet streak at home. They've unfortunately they surrendered that in their last matchup on Friday, a home match at Genoa, and really what struggled was for them was that they let it in off a set piece that was not touched, just a cross in the box that no one got a head on or no one really contacted, and it went in the net. From I think Bologna's perspective, they're still a defensive side that struggle to score offensively. Fiorentina are a good possession team that want to control the ball. And so I think, again, this kind of caters to a low scoring type of event. And this being the quarters of the Coppa Italia, I think there's only a single leg here. So big advantage for Fiorentina that they don't have to play a second leg at Bologna. So major advantage, actually. So good for them, I guess. I don't know necessarily if that Bologna is going to be extra motivated or something of that nature, but I do expect them to play more conservatively away from home. And I think that under 2 makes a lot of sense. It's pretty low at this moment. Fiorentina should have a lot of the ball, but I'm not sure that often converts to chances. So I guess I'm more interested in that under 2 than I am in the side here. But Bologna getting a quarter of a goal does seem valuable because they've been playing really well. They got that late equalizer from Di Silvestri, who's got less hair than me by far and no hair pretty much in general, but came off the bench for a second goal this season. And unfortunately for Genoa, a newly promoted side that probably were very, very close. I mean, we're definitely very close to taking a huge win for their salvation in Serie A type chances, but credit Bologna, and maybe that offers them some momentum going on the road for this Coppa Italia match. So now I'll move to Wednesday. We have 2 matches and we have one more on Thursday. And I'll summarize it all up with my ultimate best bet and toss that onto Instagram and onto YouTube. But Lazio, they currently host Roma, or currently they'll do it on Wednesday tomorrow. And it's a big match, big rivalry match. They share the stadium in the Stadio Olimpico. And it seems to me as the home team, Lazio should have a lot more fans. Yet Roma are a favorite here. Both the spread is pick 'em, but almost all the juices on Roma right now. Over under is 2, juices split both ways. So not much scoring is expected. And I think that's probably sensible considering how Lazio have been on an incredible under streak. I think we're 2-12 over under, or 12 under in their last 14, with, like, if you use 2.25 as their total, which I don't know that Lazio have had many totals below that. So here we are, very low total, which Roma matches are pretty much used to at this point. Lazio to me have been an under machine, and the Serie A market have not really adjusted to it so much. But this is a big matchup, big rivalry game, and I think there's a good chance this goes extra time and we don't see a lot of action. Should be a lot of physical tackles. I mean, should be an awesome event. Just a great match to watch, even if you don't have any peanuts on these matches, as we're doing this for entertainment purposes only, courtesy of my lawyer, my sister. But Lazio currently, I mean, they should have more of the crowd. Roma, to me, when I was there this October, it felt like I didn't see any Lazio blue, Celeste or whatever they call it, across the city. It seemed like a Roma-dominated city, but they'll probably have that chip on their shoulder and do as much as they can in this matchup to do as much as they can and make an impact on this match. I think Roma, being the road favorite, in name only, potentially, at least road against the crowd, doesn't really fit to me. So I'll be waiting to see if Lazio move to a quarter goal underdog. That's probably what I'm looking for. But my biggest interest right now is at under 2. I don't love playing under 2s, but at this point, it is a huge number to push on. And most of the matches I'm betting under, I'm expecting to land 2 or less. So it's not a huge difference there for me. The nightcap on Wednesday of AC Milan hosting Atalanta. Currently Milan a quarter goal favorite at home with almost all the juice over unders 2.5, and then it's juiced slightly to over. Atalanta have been playing really well. It's been a home, I think, juggernaut versus kind of struggles away from home. So we'll see how that does for them at the San Siro. Now, when I went to San Siro earlier this year, I felt like Milan's crowd was pretty dull, which is surprising for a Juventus local derby, if you will, or just 2 big name clubs across Italy. I thought Inter was a much more dynamic, more dominant crowd for a Champions League match against Salzburg. So take that as you will. But Milan got a big win over the weekend on the road at Empoli, finally kind of answering some doubters, but they've been really struggling with injury in their back line, playing center backs that they really wouldn't want to play more fullbacks, wingbacks, and filling in Teo Hernandez, who's really best at getting forward on the wing. I don't know necessarily what that has in store for them for this matchup. Clearly, they'll be playing the best they can, as this looks like probably their best chance at getting silverware, unless they win something in the Europa League. Atalanta, though, they're a good offensive side, not the same firing offense that they have been in the past. But I expect them to do a little bit better this season. And ultimately, we'll see what happens in this matchup. But it's hard for me to want to play unders with Atalanta, but they've been, I think, a lot more in play or more viable with this form of Atalanta, which seems to be better in the midfield and better at controlling the game, but not as much up top. And they do have a bunch of threats. So I'll be waiting to see if Milan money comes in here and maybe we pop this to Atalanta getting a half of a goal. The juice certainly looks like we might head that direction rather than closer to pick 'em. But until we have that, I feel like at a quarter of a goal, that's pretty much my normal assignment for a home match. So I'm not sure I want to do too much with that one. And I guess under 2.5 is of interest to me, but there's a lot of questions about the Milan defense. And really, I think my total play here would be under 2.5 because I expect Coppa matches to play really tight. And they've done that for the most part, but I'm not sure that I'm ready to kind of lean onto that just yet. So not sure there's much for me in that game at this point until we get a little bit of a move either to the over, which would be nice, or to Atalanta, which would probably be even more interesting. And move to Thursday, last match of this Coppa Italia and this podcast, and then I'll eventually move to the ultimate best bet. So thank you for sticking around. And if you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. If you're not a member of SportsBetting.ag, it looks like a sister site to bet online. They're running a 100% match bonus up to $500. So go throw $500 in, and the casino will give you $500 to play with for free. I highly recommend doing that. Get as many outs as possible, and plus get as much cash and free money from the casinos as possible. There are links to the podcast description below, so go check that out. But for this Juventus Frosinone match, pretty big seismic gap between the two sides. Juve looks like they're about a 1.5 goal favorite. I'm projecting that. Total is 2 3/4. Juice is split both ways. Juve, they are a great team at taking a lead and killing the match. We saw Frosinone, who really struggled defensively thanks to an own goal, a really kind of unlucky type of situation, and that allowed the first goal to be scored. But really a home match against a Monza side that was not playing very well entering this weekend was a pretty tough loss for them. And I'm curious about what they do with their lineup here, since Serie A is so much more important to them. I think it's a good chance that they rotate for this one and play their backups, which does certainly give me concern with playing their side. I think it makes me more interested in under, because I think Juve are still in that same type of idea where they want to win a game 1-0 rather than taking a risk and seeing it equalize 1-1. Now, to me, that's not the best way to play, and it's not an intelligent way to play, but it's worked out. They're at the top of the Serie A table. So I don't think anyone's telling Massimo Allegri what to do at this point or to change his kind of philosophy. So my biggest interest here is I think it'll be depends on the Frosinone lineup. I imagine if we see backups, the total will climb because there'll be concerns about the defense. But this is also a Coppa Italia quarterfinal, so maybe they take this a little bit more seriously. The problem is they're going on the road, and we did just see Juve score a ton of goals against Salernitana in this same Coppa Italia last week, but that was against Salernitana backups. Juve took a very early lead, and I think that was all leading to a kind of a problematic start for Salernitana, one of the also clubs that are fighting relegation in Serie A, just like Frosinone. But my interest here is under 2 3/4. We'll see. I would love for this to hit 3, as I feel like that's probably the highest we've seen from a Juve match in a while. But I think does kind of right now, you'd be putting your neck out there with no idea what the Frosinone lineup will look like. I imagine it'll be rotated, but we'll see if it's actually their best starting 11. I doubt it. I think they have not enough pressure to stay in the league, that they probably care less about this competition than they do about their Serie A status. So if that'll bring us to the end of the show, I will summarize an ultimate best bet. But I got to make a best bet from Italy before I get out of here. So I think my biggest interest is really on a low scoring match, and we can choose with Fiorentina hosting Bologna, or we could do it with Lazio hosting Roma. And I think the rivalry aspect to me is more interesting for under there. So for Italy, I'll go to my best bet as the Roma Lazio under 2. And then I guess it's time for ultimate best bet. Before we get there, if you're listening on YouTube, please, or watching, because you want to see this beautiful face, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star review. It's huge for the search rankings. And if you got a comment, question, or like me to cover something in there, please send me, write it in with that 5-star review, and I will have either one of my co-hosts, if it's relevant to the NFL. And Andrew Schnicker, we got a podcast coming out tonight. He's been super hot, 5-0 last 5 picks. Unfortunately taking the lead in our season-long contest, but we've been rolling lately. I think we're 8-2 last 10 picks on the last 5 podcasts. He's of course gone undefeated. I'm 3-2, so 60% will get you done, but not the same as your co-host going undefeated. So that podcast will record tonight after I get off my flight back home in Dallas. On Wednesday, we don't have a podcast scheduled, as we've now moved the Need for Seeds college basketball podcast to Friday nights or Friday afternoons to get you ready for a big Saturday card, as we have always throughout the rest of the season. Looking forward to that. Plus, if you want to check out the pregame.com podcast I'm on with my guy AJ Hoffman over there, please check that out. We're coming out Thursday nights and Sunday nights, so twice a week on that channel. Other than that, other things I need to plug. I already mentioned my Patreon, but if you're not a patron yet, check it out. You can get my plays, leans, write-ups, everything, and you get it all with a buzz on your phone if you download the application and turn on notifications. As soon as I lock something in, so you make sure you get the same price I do. And then anything else on my list, I guess just hit me on Twitter if you got any questions or you want me to cover some new sport, because we have the AFCON coming up. I'm looking forward to that. Going to try to do the Asian Cup as well. And we have a lot of international stuff, which I feel like is where my bread is buttered a lot in this sport. So looking forward to that. But it's time for the ultimate best bets. Let's get into it. This is the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, and on Twitter. This is the ultimate best bet for this January 9th episode, covering the Coppa Italia and the English Football League's Carabao Cup. From England, my best bet, I'm going to go with that Middlesbrough under 3. And in Coppa Italia, I like Lazio under 2 as my 2 possibilities for this ultimate best bet. And it's tempting. I mean, I'm not expecting a lot of goals in these matchups, but I'll go with that Middlesbrough under 3 goals as my best bet in England. I just think that you get an extra goal here, which is nice. Certainly some questions about Middlesbrough and their defense, considering they're a mid-table Champions League side. Championship side, not Champions League. But they get to bring in and welcome in a Chelsea offense that's been struggling for a long time. I still don't believe that they're going to change their philosophy too much and score a bunch of goals all of a sudden. I think Middlesbrough keep this really close in preparation for a second leg, so go under 3 in that matchup. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. As always, we'll see you on the next one, which will be likely tonight, the NFL going through the playoff round 1 with my guy A_Schnicker, who's 5-0 in his last 5 picks, hopefully going 6-0. Though I need to win to keep track and stay in our season-long competition, because I don't want to get hit with a meatball Subway sandwich.